what do we do, right? So if we know that there's a greater than 50% chance in our conversation, at the result of our conversation, John, there's a greater than 50% chance that you're going to end up sticking with what you're currently doing. I get that. I also get that my job is to help you consciously choose that if that's the route you want to go. Cool. So what do we do? The problem is what we typically do is we're like, but John, tell me this. And let me just start peppering you with questions, right? Because this is just what our default, because that's what we're trained to do, is like, oh, well, tell me these things, because if I ask you the right golden ticket question, if I pull that out of my big toe, all of a sudden you're like, oh, now I'm interested. It's like, that doesn't really work. What works is if we have a conversation and we try and kind of unpack what's really going on, understanding the fact that A, my job is to help you make a decision, and B, the greater than 50% chance that you're actually going to stick with what you're currently doing. So let's forget about peppering everybody with questions, because the truth is you got to kind of earn it. You got to earn the right to ask me a whole bunch of questions. You just can't do that. And also partially because as a buyer, most often when you start asking me a bunch of questions, you haven't set my expectations. Meaning, hey, John, for the next 3 minutes, I'd love to ask you a series of questions so that I can better understand, or so I can better orient the value that I believe that you're going to need to bring to your boss and your CFO out of a solution like this, even if you're to choose to actually solve for the problem. But before we get that, I'd love to ask you a few questions just so that we can get clarity on the problem itself.
I love that.
Right? So what I'm doing is I'm setting expectations. I'm like 3 minutes, 6 minutes, 9 minutes. Do it in chunks of 3, by the way. Nice. People have odd numbers.
I like I actually even like, especially with executives, and this is something I talk about in the training, where there's actually some Gong data on this one, that the best sales reps ask like 4 questions to executives, right? Give or take. And everybody knows this feeling. After you've asked an executive 3, 4, 5 questions, eventually they're going to, could you just show me what you got? Could you just show me the demo?
Totally.
Because you haven't set the expectations. And so what I say is, look, hey, Doug, look, I got like 5 quick questions I need to ask you, maybe 5 or 6 that I need to ask you before I can share with you where I think we can help. So you mind going through that? Because if I tell you I got 5 or 6 questions, you'll wait for 5 or 6 questions. If I don't tell you I got 5 or 6 questions,
I have no idea.
Get really annoyed because what they're saying at that point, when they say, just show me the demo, they're effectively saying, hey, you got enough value out of this conversation, kid. Now it's my turn. When am I going to get my value? Right. And so I love the expectation setting, whether it's, hey, 3 minutes, 6 minutes, 9 minutes, or 5 questions, 6 questions. You really have to set that expectation, and that's where you can compartmentalize and ask the right questions, as opposed to trying to kind of go to the next, and quickly skip through them, so that you can maybe then give them your piece of shit pitch that you didn't align anything with.
Which, by the way, you haven't even earned the right to give anyway, because you haven't added zero value in the conversation. By the way, here's the reason why I say 3 minutes or 6 minutes versus 5 or 6 questions. Because the thing is, once it comes to questions, now I know all of a sudden I'm going to get inundated. And here's the thing about discovery that I don't like. Discovery is more for you than it is for me. And so the reason why I time bound this is because I don't want you to actually come to me with a bunch of questions. I want you to come to me with a hypothesis about me. So here's the difference. Here's the biggest shift in this notion of discovery. This is why I don't really like discovery, is because I don't want you to come to me with a series of questions. I want you to come to me with a hypothesis about 5 things. 5 things. In the beginning, it's going to take you a little while to develop these hypotheses with your team, with your marketing team. After a couple exercises, after doing this a couple times, I can literally do this in 30 seconds. You give me a brand new company in an industry that I know nothing about, and I can develop a hypothesis about it in 30 seconds.